Hey folks, we are going to the YouTube comments for today's question. So this says, well, it's from Omkar Naik. I'm not sure if I pronounced that properly, so I apologize if I got it wrong. But the question says, what's your advice for people who are starting first job late after being jobless for very long due to personal reasons? And I'm going to interpret this question because they do say first job. I'm assuming they mean not just a first software development job. It's a little confusing because it says after being jobless for a very long time. It made me kind of interpret that as had a job, then was jobless, and then is looking for a job. I don't think my sort of perspective on this is going to change anyway to answer this, so I will try my best to give you my perspective on this. Friendly reminder, if you want questions answered, leave them below in the comments or send a message to DevLeader on social media. It's my social media handle and my main YouTube channel. If you send in questions, I'll keep you anonymous, and that way you can write whatever you want, and I'll try my best to answer. But, okay, from the perspective of someone, there are kind of two things going on here, right? Starting late, and then maybe this perception of, like, I don't know, two things maybe. Like, on a resume, it looks like pretty light, and like, hey, where's all the experience? And what was the other thing I wanted to say? Maybe this feeling of like, not even from the resume perspective, but like I feel like I'm behind. So perception outside in, and also like this feeling of like, what do I do, right? So I want to kind of chat through this. I wanted to start by saying, like, on my main YouTube channel for career switchers at least, I've definitely had interviews with people that are getting into software development late. Late, air quotes, like later than what we would consider like someone who was, going through high school or something and then going, hey, like I want to be a developer, and kind of like proactively trying to align post-secondary education, boot camps, whatever it is, to go get a job in software development. Because if you're doing that, you probably are at least starting earlier, because you're trying to do those things as soon as you can. But there's definitely people I've talked to that are career switchers that are going into software development late, so 30s, 40s. And for those individuals, it was like, I mean, slightly different because they have some other work experience. I realize I think this person's trying to say I don't have any, but they have some other work experience, but they say, hey, a couple things are going to happen, right? I'm going to lean on the skills and experiences that I built up in whatever career or field that I've been in, which people, I think, underestimate. There's a lot of value in that. I've made videos on this before, right? But if you're working in teams doing stuff and being able to show accountability and stuff like that can go a really long way, because when you're doing your first job, there's a lot of that stuff that you've never experienced before, right? Like, even if you went to college or university, it's like you have assignments, you have to study for exams, but like that building stuff in teams, like actually in teams, not just like a couple of assignments here and there. It's very different. Being able to work in code bases that have existed for a while would be very different. So if you're someone who's at a company where there were established processes and you're coming into it, like, these are different experiences that you could carry forward with you into a software developer position. Even if it's a junior, right, entry level position, it's still like you have a bunch of other experience to bring over. So in this case, if you don't have any of that other experience, to me, this just kind of puts you in the spot of like entry level developer. I think people get very nervous about this because there may be this perception, or I don't know, they might be creating this like false perception of someone going, well, I don't know how old this person is, right? My age is 26, or it's 30, or it's 32, or whatever. And someone's going to be looking at my age on a resume going, wait, where's all the other experience? And there isn't, so we're just going to ignore, right? But when we're looking at juniors, and I should be careful here because I there's a comment that I literally have pulled up here where someone had commented saying like that I'm leaving out the fact that there are no junior jobs, and I responded to them and I was like, in the last 12 months I have literally interviewed and hired junior developers at Microsoft. Don't like I understand it's very challenging times, but don't tell me there's none. There are, because I've hired for them. So I want to be careful as I talk through this, because I'm sure there's going to be some angry people in the comments, but in this position where you have not worked before, as someone who looks at resumes, as someone who does interviews, I think if I were to piece together, like, oh, this person is a little bit older and they don't have like work experience written down, I might go, interesting. Like, that's not common, but I wouldn't like flag it or something. Like, it doesn't be, for me at least, it's not a thing of like, oh, therefore red flag, there's an issue. I probably wouldn't even ask about it or talk about it unless they brought it up, especially because this person was saying for personal reasons, right? That's exactly why I wouldn't. It's exactly why I wouldn't ask a candidate in an interview. Oh, like, what's the gap here? Why are you 28 years old or 32 or whatever it is? Why are you this age and don't have any other work experience? It's not about, for me at least, it's not about addressing like why are there gaps, because when I'm interviewing people, my goal is to try and understand all of the reasons why someone would be a good fit. Right? Like, let me try to get you to, like, I want to extract the value during the interview. If there are red flags that come up, sure, but like, not having prior work experience, if someone was applying for like a junior role, would not be a red flag. If someone was applying, so in this situation, just to give you a counter example, if someone who was starting late, had not had work experience, was applying for like a senior developer position and was trying to like lie their way through it, and then it comes out that they don't have prior work experience, and that would be a red flag for me, because they're just not being honest. But like, the red flag is not they don't have prior experience. The red flag is that they're lying about it. That's all. Right? It's like, and I've had people, or even they're not being malicious about it, but they're saying like their skills are at some level, and then we're going through the interview and I'm going like, based on how you're being evaluated, like, these skills don't line up. Like, if you've heard of FizzBuzz or FizzPop, the interview question, right? If you haven't, go look it up on Wikipedia. It's fascinating, because it's basically like a for loop in an if statement, and then, depending on how you ask it, like a modulo operator, because usually it's like even odd kind of print. You print for even and odd to the console, but it's like, even if you don't know the modulo operator for testing even and odd, whatever, it's like very basic stuff. For loop, or some other type of loop, whatever you want, and an if statement. And there's like a staggering number of people that aren't able to actually do this in an interview. So if I had someone who was saying like, I have 12 years of experience and I want this senior role, and then something like that comes out in the evaluation, I would be like, that's a red flag for me, because like, there's a very big discrepancy between what experience someone is telling me they have versus like what I'm observing. But all of that to say, like, not having the prior experience to me does not stand out as a red flag, as long as you're being honest about it, right? If you're not trying to mislead, then so what? Now, I'm not every recruiter, I'm not every hiring manager. This is just my perspective, right? This person's saying, what's your advice? So, my advice is that I just treat this the same way that anyone who is just starting out would try to, build up their portfolio and their resume, right? I would say, start practicing building stuff. So if you don't know, and this is going to be Like, it's going to be very general advice. And if you've watched other videos where I talk about this, it's going to be the exact same, right? So figure out what type of software that you're at least interested in starting with. Is it mobile applications? Do you want to build websites? Do you not know at all? Like, start somewhere. And you can change, right? It's not like this isn't going to like dictate the rest of your career. So if you're like, I don't know, like websites sound cool, or I don't know, mobile apps sound cool. All right, awesome. Like, pick something, right? And if you don't know, you can literally go to ChatGPT or your favorite LLM, ask it for some ideas, because if you don't know, like, it's not going to be wrong. You just need a starting point, because people usually get paralyzed by this because there's like a million different things you could do. And they're going, well, I got to pick the best thing. Like, and there isn't. So then you're stuck trying to make a decision that doesn't actually matter. And you could have just been getting started, because so much of this stuff is transferable that you might as well just start building the experience like right now. So you can ask an LLM for feedback about like, what are the options for like mobile development, embedded programming, if you want to do websites, whatever. And then you can say languages and tech stacks once you're trying to get some more ideas beyond that, and just like pick something. Then from there, you can start doing like build a really small project. You could ask ChatGPT or whatever your favorite LLM for more ideas. There's lots of like, if you start searching online, you can go find like a bunch of different templates or starter things to like, you get your typical like to-do app or calculator app kind of thing. Some people roll their eyes at that, but it's like, if you're just trying to get started building something, like building anything is totally fine. Do it. Practice building stuff. You'll have to keep building and iterating to get the skills to be able to build upon. So I'd start with that. Okay, so you're getting some of that momentum. You can layer in like watching YouTube videos, tutorials, reading articles, stuff like that. But what I don't recommend, and courses and on top of that, right? But what I don't recommend is that it's called tutorial hell if you're not familiar with the term. But what will happen is someone will say, well, I want to be a developer, so let me go get a tutorial for how to do something. So they follow the tutorial, which ends up being that they just copy and paste what's shown in the tutorial till they get to the end and they go, great, it worked. So therefore I am a developer. Then they go, well, let's build the next thing. So they find one more tutorial, copy, paste, like get it running, and they go, great. But the problem ends up being that by doing this, they're not actually getting stuck. And then they're not learning. So you kind of have to get stuck to help reinforce when you're unsticking yourself, like that's a learning moment. And if you're just purely copying stuff out of tutorials, so sometimes like on my main YouTube channel, people will say, hey, like post the source code for this. And it's like, no, like sometimes I do. Other times you don't need to copy this. There's no value in you copying and pasting my code that's in the tutorial. Like if you understand what I'm talking about, you don't need to copy it. There's so little value in doing that. But it's not that tutorials are bad. Like I would be very hypocritical. My other YouTube channel is literally like almost exclusively tutorials. It's just that if that's where you're starting and that's all you're using, I think that there's little value in that. So I would try to build stuff when you're getting stuck. Like maybe go look up a tutorial specifically on the thing you're stuck on, or ask your favorite LLM for advice on it, get unstuck, and then keep building until you're stuck again. Okay, so I would do this, follow this process, and then keep doing it. Let's park that for a moment, okay? Beyond that, because this question's pretty open-ended, right? Like, what's your advice? It's like, well, at some point, you're going to want to try applying for jobs, right? So the number one thing I would say is that your competitors, the people are applying for stuff, they're either going to be people that have been building software for a while, that have projects. Some of them will have college or university. Some of them will have boot camps. Some will have a mix of those. And if you don't have that kind of stuff, it's not a problem. It's just that you have to consider like what your competition is going to look like, right? Because when you're applying for stuff, you want to stand out. So building projects is one way to do that for sure. People have requested resume reviews from this channel, and I started posting them on a playlist on my main Dev Leader channel. And I've had resumes come in that don't have any projects. Right? It's not like people assume like every developer has side projects and stuff, and they're like, oh no, like I'm screwed. But no, like some people aren't even doing that. And I would say, like, my take on this is like, that's a minimum expectation. If you're considering how competitive it is right now, as soon as, if you consider that you might have a similar skill set to someone else, if they have demonstrated that they put together projects and they have a little portfolio of like, here's things that I built, and you don't have that, they're automatically standing out more than you. I'm not saying they're better than you. They're just automatically standing out more if their skills and experiences are all comparable. Experiences being basically zero if you haven't had a job yet. So projects are a great way to stand out. So if you're thinking about your resume, I would say like try thinking about how you can be demonstrating the things you're learning through your projects. But beyond that, what could you be doing? I would say networking. Try to, and this isn't for everyone, I understand. Like I certainly didn't take this advice. If I were talking to my younger self, I think it would be hard to convince me to do this because I'm very introverted. But I would say try to get out to meetups, right? Try to get out to local meetups, network with people, take advantage of sites like LinkedIn or other places where you can be connecting with people digitally. It's not just a matter of connect to spam your resume out to people saying, hey, like get me a job, please refer me. Nope. Build meaningful connections. This kind of stuff takes time. But I think meetups are a great way. I've talked to people that have done volunteer work for not-for-profit organizations on weekends and stuff, so they're dedicating some extra time. That's something you can put on a resume. You're not getting paid for it. I understand. That doesn't feel very good. But it's experience you can put on a resume. For people that are in college and university, I've mentioned before, like if you have like clubs and stuff, like a robotics club or whatever it happens to be, there's usually tons of different options at these places. Try to get into that. Hackathons, try to do those to be able to put down some different experiences on a resume. For this individual that wrote this, if you're not in college or university, it's not the end of the world, right? What I'm trying to do is give you ideas about things that people can do. So volunteering, you shouldn't need college or university to do that. You'll hear people saying commit to open source stuff. Same thing, no prereq for that. But if you're trying to like go above and beyond, I would say try to find some of these opportunities where you can be. I've seen people posting on Reddit that they're looking for like coding buddies and stuff. Like, could you go build projects online with other people? Right? It's all just about creating these experiences instead of just waiting to say, well, I don't have a job, I can't get a job, therefore there's never going to be any experience. It's kind of like a chicken and the egg problem. Start creating the experiences. I realize it's not the same as saying like, I have some company on my resume that was employing me. I know it's not the exact same, but you can be creating experience, and you should. Because if you're just waiting, it's not going to happen. And then you're going to be disappointed. But what is in your control is to be creating these other experiences. So I'd highly recommend that. But maybe I'll wrap it up there. Overall, I would say from my perspective, the time, like being jobless and starting late kind of thing. Late, I don't even know what late means. I wouldn't be concerned personally. I think that, let's put it this way. The reason I'm saying not to be concerned about that is number one, because personally, that's not something I give a shit about. That's my bias, right? I'm not everyone else. But the other reason is like, that's literally not something that you can even change. There is nothing that you can do about that. You don't have a time machine, so you can either be concerned about it and let that hold you back, and maybe it's all for no good reason, or you just say that's what it is. Like, you cannot change it, so I just would not be concerned about it. Just focus on the stuff that you have control over, which is building experience. So hopefully that helps. That's my take on it. I wish this person all the best. I think that this is one of the coolest industries to be in because there's so many different domains. And yeah, like I said, wishing them success. So thanks for the question. And a friendly reminder, if you have your own questions, leave them in the comments or send them into DevLeader on social media. And I'd love to try and answer your questions. So take care. See you next time.